So I'm a bit nervous about doing this next recipe because I'm going to show you how I make a pasty. Pasty. And pasties are a bit emotive really because they're very personal how you make a pasty. I am not Cornish, I've got to say. Came to Cornwall when I was 2.
What you pretty much, I would say.
No, not really, not the 7th generation Cornish, but I was taught to make a pasty by Aunty Ros, who lived next door to us at number 6 Greenfield Terrace. And
in Portree.
In Portree, sorry, should have said that. And also shout out probably to Libby's grandma, who I think was the best
She
pasty
was
maker in
the world. I would honestly give my right toes to have one of her pasties. They were unbelievable.
No, she, Anne Barnes, the best pasty maker I ever knew.
But she was, I mean, as Cornish as they come really, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So I do think it's sort of like in your blood.
So filling, no problem. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But the trickiest thing actually is the pastry. And I've got to say, if only I know how Anne Barnes made her pastry. I watched her 100 times, but I didn't, it was always slightly different and it was always a bit of a secret recipe.
I'm not joking, I used to have one of her pasties every day when I was younger, and then I wondered why. I was like a 8 stone 5-year-old.
But it was worth it.
Oh God, it was worth it.
So I've done quite a bit of research. I know Anne Barnes used to use suet, she used to use lard, and she used to use a bit of butter. What quantity, how she did it, she would never let me see. Okay, it was a very, very secret recipe. I've done my research and I've come up with what I think is as good a representation of it. Now the thing with pasty pastry is if you go back to how they originated, literally miners used to take them down the mines as they used to have to be fairly robust. So you want something of a mixture between a short crust and a flaky. But that is firm enough to hold that filling in, so you literally can hold the bottom and eat your way through it and it doesn't collapse. So I've got strong bread flour here. Now, if you can't get bread flour, I know it's tricky to get at the minute, still try this with plain flour. But the high level of gluten in this flour gives it some robustness. Don't be alarmed, I'm making 8. So the recipe I'm going to give you with the post, I will halve for 4. But my theory is, they're a bit of a faff to make. They're just a bit time consuming really. Once they're done, it's one tray. And if I'm going to make 4, I might as well make 8 because they freeze brilliantly uncooked. So I'm actually going to make a whole batch and distribute them to various people later. So this is going to be a big batch of pastry. Now I've actually got a kilo of bread flour in here. You do need to put some salt in, quite a big bit of salt. Oh, you need to fill my salt pot up. So we need a good, the rest of that in, 2 teaspoons of salt. Give that a mix in. And then I've got 220 grams of lard and 50 grams of butter. Now, if you don't want to use lard, which I get, then Trex is good. Okay, the white Trex. Likewise, you can use a hard margarine, which makes it a vegetarian pastry. But the key is you want to freeze it. So this has been in here in the freezer. And I'm going to grate it onto this lard wrapper, okay, like so. And this really is quite similar to using a bit of suet in there. And in fact, what I do want to try at some stage, but I haven't got any suet at the moment, is doing half of this grated lard and half suet, because I think that will take us nearer to Grandma's pastry than this.
Who knows? Where would, if you had to go get a pasty, what shop would you go? Go on, let's cause a debate. Where would you go?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so pasty, for me, it has got to be on the way to Lelant. Phelps pasty, for sure. What about you?
See, I haven't had pasty in probably over a year now because I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy, and so I don't want to have a vegetarian one because it's not the same. I also kind of sometimes find them underwhelming because they will never be as good as Grandma's, but Rose.
Good one.
Rose for sure. Or if I'm feeling fancy, the Cornish food store.
Bluett's used to be a good one as well. Don't know
Yeah, I
whether
think
they
the
still
independent
do
places
a
are
good
probably the
one.
better. But if you're in town and you're trying to make a decision, I'd say go to Rose. There are also 2 Rolls in Rose in town, so I mean.
The other thing, can I just put this out there now? There is no space for chicken tikka in a pasty.
That is just like, it's actually offensive. Or like a Ginster's pasty that you see in like those packet pasties that you see. Honestly makes my toes curl.
So in fact, if you want to have a little look at these filling ingredients, there are the only things
you need in a
that
pasty.
should be in a pasty. The only things are swede, yellow swede, sometimes called turnip, old potatoes, white onion, and a proper amount of cut beef, and it's skirt beef, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But what you've seen me doing is just literally mixing all of that lard through, and because it was frozen, it's kept its shape nicely. And I put the butter in the freezer too, so just preempt it by putting your lard and butter packs into the freezer. And in goes my butter now. You just have to sort of separate it and give it a good coating of flour and mix it all through. And what I'm going to do now is mix it together with some chilled water. And I literally have been even organised with this because chilled water is super important, because I don't want to melt any of these little bits of fat. So
this water was in the fridge, FYI.
Yeah, so have a little feel. Just have a feel to see if there's any massive lumps of that fat that's clumped together. If there is, then just give it a bit of a separate. But you don't want to rub it in to get the crumb stage, okay? You want to leave it at this slightly sort of weird crumbly stage. And then we're just going to mix in enough iced water to bring this together to a firm dough. Okay. And again, I'm not going to tell you how much you need. You're just going to have to gradually bring it together. Strong flour needs a bit more water than plain flour does. And obviously don't forget I'm doing a double quantity here, so you won't have quite such an industrial quantity if you're just sticking to the 4.
It's probably one of the things I miss the most, not being able to eat meat and dairy as a pasty.
But I cannot be doing with all of this nonsense in a pasty.
It is like a chorizo pasty, like.
What is that all about?
Just stick with what it is. I just don't get the point.
What's some other classics, like a breakfast pasty? Who puts sausage, egg and baked beans in a pasty?
Yeah, that is truly awful.
What? So I brought this all together, and then I just tipped it out onto my worktop, the floured worktop. Now I don't want to knead it, because I don't want the fat melting and it getting tough. But I'm just going to bring it together to a sort of homogeneous dough. Okay. Right, so we're going to have to just chill this a little bit whilst we make our filling. I'm just going to chop it in half, just because it's such a big quantity. Wrap it in cling film and then get it in the fridge just for the time that we're going to do all our veg and meat prep. So the beef, first of all. Now what you need is what's called skirt, okay? It's sometimes sold as pasty meat, pasty beef or skirt. I've got this from Cascan, Organic Farm. Good Food, the Good Food, Cornish Food still do it. Any good butcher will know exactly what you mean. It's actually the diaphragm of the of the animal, of the cow. It's quite a tough meat, but a good pasty needs quite a long time in the oven to soften that meat up. I've had a kilogram here, because I'm making 8 big ones, and for me, you've got to have a good amount of meat in a pasty. You don't want to have a lump of minced meat in the middle.
No, not the
Absolutely
one.
horrid. Now, skirt can be a little bit fatty. You want a bit of that fat in there to give the gravy. but just trim any obvious bits off. And then, to be honest, when my mum used to make them, she used to cut her meat into strips a bit like that. That doesn't do it for me. I like to cut it into strips and then across into small pieces. So you're not sort of like pulling out a lump of meat out of the pasty. But again, under no circumstances whatsoever should you be using minced beef.
Absolutely not. That is actually a bit criminal.
So it's got to be good quality skirt beef, as they just say. I'm not even going to attempt a Cornish accent. It's not bad if I've had a few drinks, but I think most people would find it quite offensive.
No one really has a Cornish accent nowadays, unless you're
I don't know.
quite an older generation.
Now, again, this takes me back to watching Aunty Ros and my mum and your grandma make pasties, which is you've got to just divide up your meat into the equal little portions. Okay. So if you're doing the quantity I've given you, it'll just be for 4. So you're putting about the right amount in each. Okay. Get rid of that bit in a minute. Now, vegetables. I can't really tell you exactly how much because these vegetables vary so hugely in size. What I can tell you is that for every quantity of potato, you want 2/3 of that in swede and 2/3 of that in onion. Now, Aunty Ros, who originally taught my mum and taught me, she used to, and actually Auntie Betty, who lived at number 1 Greenfield Terrace, they used to use a potato peeler and what they call chip up their vegetables like that. You could do that in a food processor. I tend to prefer them diced, okay? But again, no frozen veg, no other weird things like
no
carrots
peas,
in there.
no peas.
Certainly no peas. What could a pea be doing in a pasty?
They've either got there in there by mistake, or someone needs to have a long, hard think about their actions.
Now, I'm going to mix together my turnip or swede and potato, but I'm going to leave my onion separate. So I'm just going to crack on and do all of this and then show you what I mean.
So approximately we've got 1 swede.
Yeah, but I'm not going to use all that
onions
sweetness. I'm probably only going to use 1/3 of that. They go a long
all
way.
of this as well.
Yeah, I'm going to use that, but I'm probably not going to do that. I just wanted to say that's what I mean by a swede. It's
Okay,
not a
cool.
white turnip. So just recapping, chopping an onion finely. Peel it, leave the root pretty much intact through that root. And then you want to do lots of cuts as close together as you can, up to, but not through the root, holding it in what we call a bridge hold to keep it together and your fingers out the way. And then claw grip, I tend to use a bigger knife here. You want to go all the way through. So you've just got lots of tiny strands held together by that root. And then what you can do is go across, nice sharp knife to really finely chopped onion. So I finally chopped my onion. Libby has said quite rightly that I didn't really make much sense with my vegetable thing. So essentially, if you consider a 1 quantity of potato, you want about 2/3 of the same quantity of potato in the swede and about 2/3 in the onion in a pasty. Now, I've completely messed that up because I've actually got slightly more swede than potato here.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it
doesn't
won't really make much of
matter.
a difference.
But I tend to just do all my veggies like this. Now, chop your potato last, because it's going to go brown. And you really want to get yourself all set up now. So you want a little bit of flour for rolling.
And putting in the pasty.
You want a bit of butter. Yeah, and good girl, putting in the pasty. You remembered that.
I do remember.
I'll teach you all of this skill in a minute. We want some salt and pepper, which I'll go and get. And I tend to use, so I've got some nice flat baking trays here. Just pop some greaseproof paper on the bottom. Put them directly on that. Now, Grandma's pasties, she used to make you tiny ones when you were little like this, little cocktail pasty. I tend to make a quite good dinner size pasty, but obviously you can adapt the size.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then supper. And my supper would be a pasty and shreddies with warm milk and clotted cream. And then I go to sleep. Like, no wonder I was. Not that this is anything to be ashamed of. I was an obese child, and I blame it solely on her. But it's fine because I'm just a little bit chubby now, so it's okay.
I know, but hey, wasn't she fab? So right, now I'm gonna cut this into 4 pieces each. This is cut a clinker as well. That's really bright. It's still a little bit soft, but I just want to crack on and get these made. So if you can leave that pastry a bit longer to go a bit firmer, then all well and good. So you want to form it into a disc shape, like that. You want to get out your rolling pin, and you want to roll it into as much of a disc shape, circle shape as you want. Now, again, Aunty Ros, Aunty Betty, Mum always used to say, get it pretty much to a dinner plate size. Mum used to really struggle with getting it round. So when she was learning from our lovely Aunty Ros next door, I remember Aunty Ros getting out a dinner plate and literally saying, right, cut round the dinner plate. I guess I've just had lots of rolling experience. And one thing I would say is it is worth getting 4 pieces rolled out at once, so that once you start your compiling, you've done all your rolling basically. You will get bits of vegetable everywhere, so try and do this in sort of organised stages as much as you possibly can. You can stack these up, but just make sure they're nicely floured.
Do we like a condiment with our pasty?
Oh well, I'm going to show that I'm not Cornish now.
I don't.
Because I love a bit of ketchup with a pasty.
No, that's not bad. I mean, I despise ketchup.
Love a bit of ketchup, and you got.
I like piccalilli.
Oh yeah, see that's quite a classic because our grandfather
Love
used to have
piccalilli.
piccalilli with his pasty, and you've got to have a cup of tea with your pasty. You can't have like a glass of wine and a pasty. No.
Well, you might. People can have what they want with their pasties.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Except for mincemeat. Mince beef.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, mince beef, carrot, or anything with chicken. Don't you dare do that to us. Go. Okay.
That's where the magic happens, ladies and gentlemen.
The pressure. Quite a lot of pressure here now, Libby. So, top tip, I think, is fold your piece of pastry in half. So, like you get a pasty shape. Put your rolling pin near you and fold that top half back. So that gives you a sort of a clear line. And the biggest thing that is easy to do with the pasty is overfill it. So it's really difficult to crimp. But likewise, you do want a nice bit of filling. So imagine a sort of
rainbow.
Yeah, rainbow shape. You want to leave yourself about 2 centimetres all the way around. And you're going to start with some of your potato turnip mix, and you're then going to put on a layer of onions. Try and get the filling as even as possible, and you're then going to place over your skirt beef, which has just been chopped up. Okay, so most important is get that really even, so you don't have a bite
without a piece of meat.
Without a bit of meat in there. Now, at this point, you need to do 2 very, very important things, and I credit this entirely to your grandma. You want to get a knob of butter, and you want to put some knobs of butter all over. For me, it's got to be butter really to give the flavour. And then you've got to get a little bit of flour and shake over.
Because that makes the gravy.
To make the gravy.
When
Because
it's
you're going to
cooking.
get a lot of juices come out of the vegetables and the meat, and that will thicken it. And then, just to get my salt and pepper, there. I'm back. You want a good grinding of salt and pepper. And then you do the whole thing again in reverse there. So you do get from this stage on in a bit of a mess. So you see the benefit now of getting all of that pastry rolled before. Okay. And then give it a good pack down. And then you want to wet the edges and try and make sure you've not got any escaped bits of vegetable on the edges, or just push them back, because it gets really difficult to crimp with stray bits of vegetable. Now, the crimping is all about getting a really good seal. Okay, actually, a bit of veggie there. Ideally, without pulling holes into the pastry. So my advice is, if you use the curved side of your hand, something like that.
I've been leaning in there.
Have you been
Don't do that.
Libs.
It's fine. Carry on.
Okay, so you want to make sure your hands aren't sticky and seal in around the edges there. And then you're going to crimp. Now,
that is a monster. She is a monster,
she is a big bird.
You're going to need 4 trays, because that's only going to fit 2.
I cannot. AJ laughs at this. He says that is a ridiculous size pasty. I can't make smaller pasty. It's hopeless.
That is an extra large. You pay about £8 for that in Rose.
Yeah, but you know, it's anyway. Right, crimping, ever so easy. Okay. You want to hold it with your thumb and forefinger with one hand. Pull the pastry, take it over your thumb, pull your thumb out and squeeze it, okay? Over your thumb, squeeze it. Over your thumb, squeeze it. Over, squeeze. So you're pinching, folding over, all the way around. And then the last bit at the end, you just give a little twist.
I mean, that is massive. Just for reference, this is my hand. Like, that is ridiculous, Mum. That is honestly...
Okay, well, I'll do a smaller one, but
that's the size of your head.
But I was always taught dinner plate, and look, dinner plate.
No.
Well full.
I mean...
If you're going to have a pasty, Libby, you might as well have a pasty.
You might as well. Maybe the ones in shops are just too small.
Well,
they're not traditionally sized.
Right.
I mean, that Mum thought, for reference, she thought she was going to be able to fit 4 pasties on that one tray. You can fit 2 max.
I'm going to show you again. So here are my my, first of all, that one was a particular monster, I got to say. But my point
These are more
is,
reasonable sizes.
it would be your dinner. It's like your whole dinner. You meat and veg and all in one dinner. And traditionally, in our household, and my mum used to do this, we used to get a bit of leftover pastry and put your initial either in pastry on the end, and then you'd eat your main pasty for your tea, and then you'd have your corner for later. So I think it should be this size. Anyway, what you need to do now, not necessarily with this huge comedy-sized knife, is put a couple of slits in the middle, because we don't want this steam bursting the pastry open. And
Ooh. Hello.
And what you will see, which one? Had a bit of a hole there, so all I've done is just patched it. No problem with that.
These are homemade, they don't have to be perfect.
No, absolutely not. So a bit of egg wash and my ridiculous paintbrush. Because
You do not own a pastry brush.
Well, I don't know what's happened to it. So anyway, I've been inventive.
Oh, it was my idea.
Yeah, to give you credit, Libby.
Don't take the credit, Maria.
And can I just draw attention to how lovely this egg wash is in colour? Because our little ladies are upping the ante on the laying.
We're getting 5 a day now.
Which is hugely exciting, although we keep losing Boris. And we've discovered she's found this little bramble hedge behind the house with a little nest in that she goes in and lays her eggs in.
But she is my chicken, so she's bound to be a bit naughty. Unusual. Yeah, weird.
Yeah, straight weird, slash weird. Right, now, these are going to go into the oven at 200 initially for about 20 minutes. And what that's going to do is set the pastry. And then we're going to turn it right down to about 160. And we're going to, this size is going to need a good 40, 45 minutes. So they're going to be in the oven for about an hour altogether. If you freeze them, you need to cook them from frozen. Do exactly the same thing with the 20 minutes hot at the start, but then you're going to need to give it longer to make sure that you've got them completely cooked. So, you know, anything up to an hour. But you can put a knife in the middle and just feel if those vegetables are super soft. One thing you cannot do is hang around now. You can't make them and cook them later on today because the potato will go brown. So you've got to make them, cook them, or freeze them and cook them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm feeling all very dishevelled. You see, you do get in a bit of a mess.
It's okay.
Then you have to have a big clear up.
Our dishwasher's broken. Sorry. Just
yes.
to let you all know that every piece of mess you see, I clean up.
You are pretty good at your washing up.
I would like to do washing up like over any household chore. Anyway, let's go in the oven.
Anyway, I'm going to put these in. I'm going to make the others. I'm going to show you them all at the end of the cooking process. So, about 2 hours later, a lot of cleaning up, warm kitchen. Look at those little beauties.
I know.
What do you reckon, Liz?
Amazing. These looks the best.
Would Grandma be proud of those?
I think she would, yeah.
And, you know, if they weren't too hot, I would just lift them up and give them a good, great big bite. But one thing I just wanted to show you is, literally straight out the oven. That pastry is
solid all the way around.
Solid enough that you can hold it and bite into it.